Hello, family. My name is James Trice, and I'm the creator of a podcast called YANA, or You Are Not Alone. You Are Not Alone is a podcast for Black men. It is more than just a podcast. It's a lifeline and a brotherhood. We're here to create a supportive, judgment-free space where Black men can have real, open conversations about what truly matters to us, from family and relationships to community, sports, culture, politics, faith, sex, race, education, and the challenges of everyday life. We dive deep into it all. Whether you're looking for advice, motivation, prayer, or just the comfort of knowing you're not walking this journey alone. Yana is here for you. This is your space to connect, grow, and be heard, because none of us are meant to do life alone. Look for new episodes weekly wherever you get your podcasts. And look for me on Instagram at jbtrice123. Welcome to YANA. Greetings, everyone. James Trice here again. Welcome to another edition, another episode of YANA. You Are Not Alone. This is a space for Black men to come together and to talk and to express ourselves and to discuss issues that are important to us in a judgment-free environment where we can speak uncensored about what matters most to us. So again, this is a space for Black men to come together and realize that we do not walk this journey of life alone, because we're not meant to do life alone. None of us are meant to do life alone. So thank you again for joining this episode of YANA, You Are Not Alone. And today's guest, we have none other than Frank Sentwali Gardner joining us today. Frank, introduce yourself, man. Tell the audience what you want them to know. Welcome to the show.
Greetings. Thank you very much, Mr. Trice, and greetings, YANA listeners. This is a wonderful thing, a wonderful platform. So first and foremost, I want to say thank you for providing this. It's been much talked about conversation that Black men need spaces, and you're providing one. So thank you. I am many things, I suppose. Professionally, I'm a spoken word artist, performance poet, recording artist, founder of a group called Poetic Enterbrainment. I'm an arts educator. I teach spoken word in the Twin Cities for an organization called Compass. That's Compass with one S. I'm what's called their principal teaching artist. So I'm actually on staff where most of the artists with Compass are contract teaching artists. So I actually work for the organization as well as teach via the outlets that the organization provides all over the state. I'm a father. I'm a father of 7, 6 from my loins, and I'm a son. My mother is the only parent. I was raised by 4 parents, so I'm really lucky. I'm spoiled. I was raised by 4 parents. My mother is the only one that is not yet joined the ancestor energy, and so I hold on to her dearly. But I was raised by wonderful Black men and women, and so yeah, artists, educator, basketball coach. I coach high school basketball at Richfield High. We just took 3rd in this previous year's state tournament. Fell short of the state championship game by 2 points, so we're still a little bitter taste from that. Yeah, so those are the things that I do. I'm either on a stage helping young people learn how to find their voice, or I'm on a basketball court helping young people. Mentoring really is what basketball coaching is at the high school level, mentoring young people, not just in basketball, but in life. And when I'm not doing that, I'm fishing and hanging out with my youngest daughter, who because my stepson is 17, so he's and has his own car, so he just comes and goes. I call him the household consumer. He comes in, he consumes, he leaves.
Right.
And then all my other children are either in college or college graduates, and so our relationship, they all have degrees, so now the conversations get real intellectual, real academic. So
well,
that's
thank you for
a little bit about me.
Well, thank you, brother, for joining us. I appreciate you so much, man, for joining us. And let me start by asking you, you mentioned this term, this word, you said edubrainment.
Mhm.
Talk about what edubrainment means and where did it come from? Where did that name come from?
It's funny how ancestor energy recycles for us when we don't even know it. Um, so edu-poetic enterbrainment, the edu obviously stands for educational, poetic,
Mm,
and enterbrainment, entertainment for the brain. And our tagline was edu-poetic enterbrainment, educational, poetic entertainment for the brain, aimed at those who can't maintain yet, was our tagline.
mm,
And it really came as a freestyle. uh Tuculu Northsider, who is kind of the musical artistic genius of the troupe, and then Black Power, who is definitely the militant spiritual hub of the troupe. The three of us formed that group, and it started. Ben Coleman used to own a spot called Caribbean Splash downtown Minneapolis,
I remember that.
and he asked us if we would host an open mic there. So every Wednesday we hosted an open mic there. And one Wednesday I'm standing on stage talking to the people, and it came out as a freestyle. I said, what you're going to see tonight is called Edu-Poetic Enterbrainment. That's educational, poetic entertainment for the brain, aimed at those who can't maintain it. It all came out in a freestyle. And Black and Tile's eyes got like this. They got super big, and they said, "That's it. That's our moniker. That's what we do." And it was never actually meant to be the name of the group. It was meant to be a
Mm,
descriptor of the style of entertainment that we did. And then it became the name of the group, as we used to say it before every show. This is called Edu-Poetic Enterbrainment. What you're going to see is, and then we would say Edu-Po for short, and we always said Edu-Po stand for educate the poor. Um,
mm,
and then the
mm,
tag became Edupo, and people would shout back, and
mm,
and so it just kind of evolved on its own. But then brother J. Otis Powell, and speaking of our ancestors, brother J. Otis Powell hipped us to the fact that during the Black Arts movement in the late 1970s, with artists like the Watts Prophets and the Last Poets and Gil Scott Heron and Amiri Baraka,
mm,
Nikki Giovanni,
mm,
uh,
mm,
um, and 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 um, and Quincy Troop.
mm,
That the Black Arts movement artists would tell the people that what they do is called edutainment. And so really unknowingly, when the name Edupoetic Enterbrainment evolved, J. Otis Powell was like, whether you know this or not, the scholarship behind what you call yourselves goes back to a time during the Black Arts movement when they called exactly what you all are doing, which was this blend of, for them, it was a lot of jazz and poetry, or what they call jazz poetry. For us, it was more fusion because we're children of the hip hop diaspora. So it was more hip hop, funk, folk, R&B, soul fusion music behind our poetry. But Jay Otis said that you guys are taking edutainment to the next level. You guys are the 2.0 of edutainment. And then that got affirmed by Umar bin Hassan from the Last Poets when we did a duo feature, a double headliner bill with the Last Poets and ourselves. And Umar watched our show, and he said, "You guys are taking edutainment to the next level." He said, "You guys are the evolution of what we started, what we were doing back in the late '60s and early '70s."
mm,
And so that's kind of where it came from, man. Was just us always having an identity of, and it wasn't like formal education wasn't the purpose, but it
mhm,
was everything that we said, even when
mhm,
we did satirical poems, or even when we did poems that were dealing with the real raw of the worldliness of the streets, and black male and female interactions. All of that, we wanted it to have the moral to the story is type of component. So whether it was
mhm,
direct in our poetry of we're teaching y'all something, or if it was socially politically responsive, or if it was satirical, like we have a piece called Old Nigga Sentwali, which is a poem, which is a dialogue poem where I play a caricature of myself as a young brother who's on the streets trying to balance wanting to be righteous but having basic needs that the street life provides, and Black Power playing the character old nigga, or aka Cleophas Power, that was trying to drop that science to him about how it's all a setup and don't fall into the trap. And it's a dialogue poem on our first album. So
Mm.
no matter what element, no matter what angle we were bringing the poetry from, we always wanted people to feel like they were walking away with food for their mind, food for their soul, or food for their spirit.
Wow. Wow, there's a lot of questions I have for you in such a short amount of time. But what attracted you to this? What brought you to want to be this spoken word artist, this poet that you are? What made you want to do this work? And what is your purpose? What do you want? What do you hope to accomplish by doing what you do?
Well, so the genesis of me, even as a writer, as an artist, I owe to the legendary Grandmaster Melly Mel,
Mm.
um, and the movie Beat Street. So Beat Street came out in 1984. That summer fall. I was 11,
Yeah.
getting ready to turn 12. I was going into sixth grade, and I'd already fallen in love with hip hop culture because of Travis Lee, also known as
Yes.
Tron, if you remember the hip hop
Yes.
shop on KMOJ
That's
back in
right.
the day. So I was a religious listener at the hip hop shop. It's the only time I was allowed to commandeer my stepdad's JVC system, and it came on just for him to not care because he was either at work or tired from being at work.
Right.
And uh, and then Beat Street came out. First Wild Style came out, and everybody was breakdancing, and I did
Mm-hmm.
a lot of that. Um, and then Breaking came out, the first Breaking, and then Beat
Mm-hmm.
Street came out, and Beat Street was my lane. And when they did the tribute to Ramo at the end of the movie, and they performed the title track of the song, I had to have the soundtrack. I had to have the album, and because that song, when Melly Mel said, um, "There's gold in the street and there's diamonds under feet, yet the children in Africa don't even eat. There's flies on their faces. They're living like mice in the houses, even make the ghettos look nice. The water tastes funny. The water tastes funny. It's forever too sunny, and they work all month and don't make no money." When he was saying that line, and you're old enough to remember this, you're old enough to remember when TV went off at midnight. But then
Mm-hmm.
you're old enough to remember when the non-major channels, when it was more than 4, 5, 9, and 11, and for us in Minnesota, and it was 2, 4, 5, 9, 11. But then Channel 29 came along here in
Right.
and Channel 29 or on Channel 9, I can't remember which one, instead of TV going off, they would run these dang infomercials over and over and over about UNICEF trying to raise funds for the famine in Ethiopia.
Yep. I remember that.
And when Melly Mel was saying those lyrics, I saw those infomercials in my head. And I
Mm.
said, I want to be able to write words that impact people visually like that, where they can see what I'm talking about and be moved, like in your chest, physically moved
Mm.
at 11
Mm.
years old. And I
Mm.
said this, and as I listened to that, and I actually, it's how deep it is. I carry the words to that song in my bag of poetry. It's the only poem that I have in my bag of poetry that wasn't written by me. And I carry the
Mm.
words as a reminder of why I started writing songs. And so, so I started writing raps. And actually, the first rap I ever wrote was I listened to that song over and over until I memorized the words. And the first thing I ever wrote was the words of that song. And I would walk
Mm.
through the hallways at Webster Elementary, which is now Barack Obama, rapping those words. Um,
Mm.
and one of my friends was like, "Man, why don't you write your own words?" And so I did.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And while everybody else was breakdancing because that didn't require literacy, I was I was writing rhymes. And And then so I rapped all through college. I mean, through high school. Went away to college. I was playing basketball. Went away to college on basketball scholarship. From the time I left college, left high school to the time I came back from college, rap
Mm-hmm.
had gone from Poor Righteous Teachers to NWA to the to the dissolution of NWA to Ice Cube doing America's Most Wanted and then Death Certificate. But NWA had already opened up the can of worms and rap had evolved and become, and the corporate takeover had happened. And rap
Mm-hmm.
went from, self-destruction and Big Daddy Kane, who's my favorite rapper of all time. That's my rapper's rapper. So it went from Beat Street to once I started rapping, my influence was Big Daddy Kane, who, King Asiatic, nobody's equal. So along with being a dope MC, he was all about black consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And then by the time I came back from college, rap had taken a completely different turn. It had gone left, so to speak, message wise, or at least what was
Mm-hmm.
commercially being promoted to us. It was the gangster rap era. And that
Mm-hmm.
definitely wasn't my bag. Um, my high school sweetheart who had just graduated from University of Minnesota with a degree in journalism and started working for the Star Tribune. Um, where he, my bad, the wasps. I must have a nest somewhere. I might have to relocate if I see too many of them. I'm wearing this bright orange shirt. They think I'm
Okay.
power, but 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 so she said I'm doing an article on this. I mean, there was a lot of stuff that happened in between. Their best friend had been murdered. My
Mm.
son's mom was uh pregnant, and so I was, and that was not a planned pregnancy. So I had a lot going on personally, and she said I'm doing an article on this spot called the Bomb Shelter. I want to take you there. I think you would really love it. And she took me there, and I walked in the door, and I ran into Gail Smaller, who was curating, who I hadn't. We went to high school together, performed together
Mm.
in high school.
My guy, my guy.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
him, Truth Maze,
Yes.
OSC. That's where I met Black and Tile actually before there was Edupoetic. So she brought me to this place, and there was a community here, and I didn't do anything on the stage. I sat and watched in the audience, and I said to myself, I was going through a depression. We don't have enough time to get into all of that, but I was going through a depression, and I said, I'm gonna live for 7 more days because I got to come back and do something on this stage. And then I went back the next week and I did a piece called The Killing Season, which was a piece that I wrote in memory of my best friend who had just been murdered. And
Mm.
when I finished that piece, there was a combination of sweat and tears rolling down my face, and the audience gave me a standing ovation, and I knew right then and there what I was supposed to be doing.
Mm.
I haven't looked back.
And what do you hope to accomplish? What do you want to relay to young people today? What do you want your art to produce in the world?
I want my art to produce more young people that produce art. I want my art to produce more young people that recognize the value and importance of linguistic art, of literacy, of being able to communicate and articulate yourself in a way that gives you impulse control, in a way that um, honors the legacy of our ancestors and the struggles that they've gone through so that we could have a voice. Um, my biggest pride is the now adults that were young people when I entered their school or when I entered their community center and introduced them to spoken word. And now they're running nonprofit organizations that help young people find their voice in performance art or in literary arts. Um, I don't think there's a more important a thing that we can do for our children is to make sure that they are literate and develop a joy and a passion for reading as early as possible. And I feel like that's our responsibility as parents
Mm.
to make
Hmm.
sure that by the time your child enters school at 5 years old or 6 years old, they can already read and enjoy reading, that you've
Mm.
found the books for them
Hmm.
that speak to them so that they want to read more of those books. Um, My art is literary art. You know, I'm not, I can I come off the top? Absolutely. Been doing that for years, but I'm a writer. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you can't be a writer without being a reader, right? And
That's right.
and and when young people see me perform my work and they're like bars or ooh, or, and
Mm-hmm.
I want them to understand, well, I can do that because I love reading and I love writing. And if you can develop a passion for reading and writing, you will always find your way in this society because you're always going to be a curious thinker and a critical thinker. And that's
Mm-hmm.
what I want my impact to be. I want my tree to say he inspired this person who then inspired all of these people who are inspiring all of these people who are helping young people um find their pathway toward however you want to define success, if nothing else, peace,
Mm-hmm.
because they have the words and the comprehension to articulate themselves so that they can control their emotionality.
Mm.
Because we are raised, especially as Black men, again, Baldwin's words have never rang more true. To be Black and relatively conscious in America is to be in a state of rage almost all of the time. Abi
Yeah.
Odunne Oyewole from The Last Poets called it being rich with the rage.
Mm.
So once you're rich with the rage, you got to know how to spend that currency in a way that is productive for you and for those around you. Otherwise, it becomes destructive.
Mm.
And it's hard to be it's hard to it's hard to deliver that rage currency in a way that's constructive if you don't have the words, if you don't have the vocabulary, if you don't have the articulation, and if you don't have the emotional or impulse control to be able to express yourself in a way that is universal to how society operates. And language is a way that is universal to how society operates.
Mm. What are you most concerned about? Particularly when it comes down to black men. So let's say black boys, black men. What are you most concerned about when it comes to us?
Um, our obsession with currency over knowledge. The idea that the image is more relevant than the substance. Um, and this is just from somebody who's in schools a lot. And without trying to be controversial, I can only share my experience. I am in schools from Roseau, which is 10 miles from the Canada border, to Rochester. I've been in schools from Winona down on the Southeast River all the way to Western Minnesota. I'm in schools in the Twin Cities from East St. Paul to Edina, from North Minneapolis to South Minneapolis to West St. Paul to Rondo Community. I work with fifth grade and up. Every environment that I go into disproportionately to the numbers of Black children that are in the school, the children that are most in the hallways during class time, the children that are most likely to walk into class late, the children that are most likely to walk into class literally talking on their cell phone and feel disrespected when the teacher tells them that they need to not come into the classroom late and talking on their cell phone, and then get disrespectful to the person who is the authority figure in the room, no matter how they ask them to change their behavior, which is impulse control again, um, is concerning as it relates to our young men. And unfortunately, not I know this is about our young men, but the things coming out of the mouths of our young women are even worse. Um,
Hmm.
I said in one of my pieces, it's getting worse when before our kids can count, they cursing. And
Hmm.
unfortunately, I see a lot of young people that don't know how to, and I'm talking about fifth grade and up, that don't know how to spell basic words, but will cuss you out with every word in the cuss you out dictionary, and don't know how to spell those words either. So,
Hmm. Hmm.
and and I'm not saying this is all of our children. What I'm saying is the numbers are scarily disproportionate. And
Mm,
because then you got lack of impulse control. And
mm,
us as educators are trained to deal with lack of impulse control in a way
mm,
that the police are
mm,
not they're not beholden to that same standard. So when that behavior becomes adult behavior in society and you're constantly in a certain environment because you
mm.
never learned the literacy to get the rest of the education,
Right, right.
because if you don't have
Hmm.
what does an 11th grade, we can even say Black history class, what does an 11th grade Black history class mean to a kid who can't read the text?
I know, right?
So you can't even get the information if you don't have
Hmm.
literacy. So then everything comes out of you impulsively, and we know how that oftentimes ends up for our young boys out here and not just the police, but just on the streets in general.
Hmm.
Somebody walks up to you with bad intentions and you don't have the impulse control or the vocabulary to have a conversation that can avoid death in some cases. It's yeah, case in point, and I know we only got so much time, but I'm downtown with the woman who would become my wife. We weren't married at the time, and another one of her girlfriends, beautiful sisters. And it's me and these beautiful sisters. I'm feeling myself. I'm feeling real good. And
Hmm.
we walking out of Pizza Luce downtown, and there's a crew of young brothers, and we are coming from somewhere formal, so they're in tight-fitting dresses, not short, but you know, classy but tight-fitting. Um,
Form fitting, right?
right, and they curvy,
Hmm.
and these brothers were so disrespectful. With me standing right there, and there's like five of them, and so and I'm licensed, so but I got to figure out how do I want to handle this situation, because right-handed guy, I don't ever want to have to hurt nobody with my with my gear. I don't
Thank
have
you.
my gear because I want to hurt people. I have my gear so I
Thank
can
you.
help my children.
Right.
And so um but the way these young brothers were so disrespectful, so if I don't have impulse control and I don't have vocabulary, that can go real left, because we have a duty to protect our women, even if it's from verbal disrespect.
Hmm.
So there's five of them, one of me, and I'm with these two women in heels and skirts, or dresses. I mean, I'm sorry, not skirts, you know. And I got to figure out how to talk to these brothers in a way that gets them to honor and respect these women or ignore them, which is emasculating, as a black man, as any man, but especially as a black man. So I handled the situation in a way in which it didn't escalate. But imagine if I don't have vocabulary, if I don't have impulse control, if I don't have, articulation skills, so I can deliver a different context to them young men that gets them to at least acknowledge that that wasn't cool.
Mm.
Situations like that end up with somebody dying sometimes.
That's right. And yeah, it has happened.
Yeah.
Uh, and so let me ask this: what do you think? Uh, what's the solution? What solutions do you see? I know I hear you keep saying over and over this constant theme of impulse control.
Hmm.
Um, so what is impulse control to you? What does it look like? And then what is the solution to what you say is your biggest concern?
Impulse control to me is the ability to think before you act.
Okay.
Now, obviously, there are certain situations in which you have to be, instinctively reactive, but I think those situations are few and far between. I think we always have an opportunity to think about how we're going to react and think so that we can react, which is why it goes back to literacy and vocabulary, because if you don't have the words, you can't think of the words. You know what I mean? So,
Right.
ability to think before you can react to me is the impulse control. Um, I think the solution is for our communities, we have to um we have to get back to holistic education, which goes communally holistic education, familial education. We have to get to a point where we got to make sure that every mom and every dad, whether they're, co-parenting or nuclear or whatever, is literate and making sure that their children are literate. We have to get out of this idea that and people are going to get mad at me for saying this, but we got to get out of this idea that teaching the kids how to read is a school's responsibility. I believe the school's responsibility is to supplement the learning
Hmm.
how to read that should already be taking place well before a child even gets of school age.
Hmm.
um we have to somehow, and I think organizations like yours and others that are running organizations that are all about helping families, we have to include in that education the importance of how much time you spend reading to and with your child from the time that they're born,
Mm.
heck, while they're in the womb.
While they're in the womb, yes, I was going to say that.
you
Yes.
know um but a lot of our people unfortunately don't read because reading is taxing if it doesn't come easy to you.
Hmm.
you know um you've read PhD level papers.
Hmm.
Ain't easy.
It's
But to
not.
somebody who's never really developed a passion for literacy, reading a YA book is a PhD level paper.
Right.
And so um somehow we have got to get it instilled in, and maybe at a certain age it's too late. But my son is 30 years old. Him and his wife have their second child on the way, and they're already, they've been reading to my grandson. You have to you I it seems simple reading, right? It seems so simple, like, oh, reading that solves a lot of problems. Yes, it really does. Because when you're in a third grade classroom and you're wondering why this little boy is checked out from everything that is being taught, it's because he can't read what's in front of him that the class is reading together.
Yeah.
And so, but I guarantee you, you show me a kid that walked into kindergarten already having a reading foundation. I'll show you, you show me a young adult that had that foundation. I'll show you a young adult who's successful.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. And that can always be traced back to that.
Yeah.
Right, right. We got, man, literally got like 4 minutes left. I want
Man,
to end with this, if you don't mind. It was really fast. Um, what what final message would you give to black men, black boys, black people who are listening to you right now? And then the last thing I want to ask you, if you can give us just a real quick piece. You don't have to be long.
hmm
One of your pieces, man. Just close us out with a piece of spoken word. That'd be wonderful if you could
Um,
do that.
cool. I think my final message for young black men and black boys is spend time together sharing knowledge and read together and read together. Um, Black men with children, read with your child. And here's the funny thing, it doesn't have to be reading a novel, it doesn't have to be reading a book. Pick up an article about Jay-Z and read it together. Pick up an article about Drake and read it together. Then pick up a different article that has a different perspective and read that together. And then analyze the perspectives together. It doesn't, pick up an article about LeBron James and read it together. And then pick up an article about Michael Jordan, whatever they're into, just as long as you're reading together. You know, for me and my
That's
dad, it was
good.
the newspaper.
Yeah,
There's a
that's
picture of my
good.
dad sitting on one end of the couch with a newspaper and me sitting on the other end of the couch with the newspaper. Like, it doesn't always have to be a book. You just, develop the passion for reading. For me, it was Garfield books when I was in elementary school. And then from Garfield books, it went to Doc Savage's old
I
1960s.
remember Doc Savage.
Yeah,
Yes.
and the
Yes.
Destroyer series, you know. So you just gotta find it. But it's so important. We gotta start valuing that over valuing watching World Star on YouTube. We got to start valuing that over Instagram and TikTok threads. So if your child is spending 2 hours a day of screen time on TikTok and Instagram, spend 45 minutes reading with them, and then y'all read something together and then talk about what it means to each other.
That's good.
Take the time. It'll save your kid's life.
Yes. That's good.
So that's and
Thank you.
I write. So, if you can go from reading to writing, that's even better, because now you have the vocabulary to articulate your own thoughts. And then when you can write your own thoughts, it speeds up your own thinking process. So when the police officer did pull me over and tell me that he stopped me because I stopped suspiciously at a stop sign, and it's 3 a.m. and I'm tired and really I want to go off, but my impulse control and my articulation decided that we had a better solution than putting myself in harm's way. And then I went home and wrote a poem that's been on 2 albums and been performed on 2 continents and 4 countries. Thank you,
All
Mr.
right,
Officer.
man. Right.
I don't.
So give us a piece, man.
Oh man! All right. I'll give you a short one. So oldie,
Yep.
oldie but shorty, called "The Snake Will Lose." I've been wrapped up, tied up, tangled up, falsely emancipated, assimilated with the purpose of being culturally decimated. Well, it's no wonder why I feel so suffocated. All sense of self has been alleviated, and any attempts to regain it are overtly devastated. It's similar to how those who chose to expose the hypocritical political principles have been assassinated. If we never learn to read, how can it be communicated that the portrayals of all people is false and exaggerated? Somebody had a plan, and it was blatant: divide and conquer until a monster has been created. See, misery loves company, so let it be stated, this is just how some snake made it. We live in a tainted society where elections are perpetrated so that these jaded politicians can continue to pass their torches of torture down through the ages, and the bodies and souls that have been isolated, interrogated, and incarcerated will become expendable as soon as their genetically regenerated robots, aka clones, become dependable. There's days I wake up and immediately hate it. It's been rated E for evil, but in some way we have all participated. We've been systematically braided together like rhythm and the blues. But Sentwali's here to bring y'all insight and good news. It sure as a white light follows our blind plight through this physical life. Have no fear, because it's been written time and time and time through time again that snake will lose.
Wow. That's beautiful, man.
Thank you,
Thank you
sir.
so much, Mr.
Thank you, sir.
Sentwali. Thank you so much for joining us on today's show. Would you come back again?
Man, I would love to anytime. We just got to the tip of the iceberg.
We just did. We just did, man. There's so much more we can delve into, man, and unpack. And I want to do that with you at another time. So let's
Yes,
do it.
sir.
Thank you so
Yes,
much for
sir.
joining us.
Thank you for
Ladies and
having me.
gentlemen, thank you for joining this episode. You have been listening to and watching Yana, You Are Not Alone with Frank Sentwali Gardner. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, remember, we're never meant to do life alone. So don't even try it. Grace and peace, everyone. YANA is here for you. This is your space to connect, grow, and be heard, because none of us are meant to do life alone.